This is not an extended ad for Whitaker and Hamer, even though we do appreciate you sponsoring the Ovies and Giglio podcast. The reason why we wanted to talk to you guys is because you've seen the original ACC Grant of Rights, not the updated one, but the original ACC Grant of Rights that has been a point of obsession the last couple of years as everybody's poking around to see if they can break away from the ACC. I think the Pac-12, we just discovered that they don't have a grant of rights.
I saw that, yeah.
Which might explain why some of the stuff's going on with the Pac-12. So there's a reason why a grant of rights works and why it hasn't necessarily been broken right now. So let's start from the jump here. Josh, we'll start with you, Josh. What did you see in the original grant of rights that needed to be updated that we don't see now? What was the point of it?
Well, the point of the grant of rights, was to bind all the ACC institutions together because they are bound, right? The ACC has an operating agreement. The ACC has it's all contract law, right? They have contract provisions that bind them all together, but it's not enough. That can be broken. And so the attorneys involved came up with this grants of right theory, and Joe, you've seen it too. But it's very simple. It's genius in its simplicity, because that's one of the things. It's only 4 or 5 pages long, at least the original, but it's very effective. There's been all kinds of scholarly legal arguments are written about how to break it, what you can do, but it's tough. It's simple and it's tough. It's very good legal writing. It's very good contract.
Okay, so what makes it tough?
I think a couple of things make it tough. One, it's simplicity and its vagueness. I just handled the sale of a dental practice, and the contract was 78 pages long without attachments, right? And that was the sale of a small town dental practice, and we put that much time and effort. This is 4 pages.
You're looking at longer contracts to get a deck built at your house.
Right.
Your HOA.
Yeah, exactly. It's the way, we've seen the original, very, very brief, very shorter than you think it would be. And you said it's simple, but everyone who's seen, by all accounts, everyone who's laid eyes on these, some of these other grant of rights that are supposedly similar in nature, they all describe them as just being ironclad, airtight, beyond reproach, basically. And I think it just boils down to just being a well-drafted legal document. You don't have to have 78 pages if you really hammer in and focus in on the details and hit all the right spots. Sometimes that simplicity works in your favor.
Joe Hamer, Josh Whitaker joining us here on the Heister Automotive Group hotline. It's Joe Ovies. I'm Joe Giglio. All right, so let's go over the nuclear option here if you're the ACC. If the grant of rights is so great, right? But what about what's actually holding the ACC together? And of course, I've only watched Mad Men. I'm not a real lawyer. You guys are the real deal. Is it legitimate? Is it a legitimate option for the ACC schools to get together and say, we are going to dissolve the league? And now I'm going to combine liar, liar, my liar, liar facts here as well. Oh, so you can't enter a contract if you're not an entity, right? So is it legitimate? Can the ACC legitimately dissolve? And then that would make the grant of rights null and void with ESPN because they're not an entity anymore. Is that a legitimate thing that could actually happen?
I listen to a lot of the folks who talk about this kind of thing discuss that. And, I think the ACC does have provisions in it where it could dissolve itself. That's a thing that could happen. And I've never seen the contract with ESPN, but I would assume there's so many Joes here. I was about to talk to my Joe, and there's so many Joes. But
Joe.
we can just go with my legal name. We can go with Zay if you want. That's fine.
But I have a feeling that if the ACC were to dissolve, and the reason they would be dissolving is teams wanted to leave and wanted to get out of the grant, right, that there would be some sort of breach with the ESPN contract. So then the end, if me and Joe dissolve Whitaker and Hamer, and Whitaker and Hamer owes thousands and thousands, millions and millions of dollars to somebody, and we dissolve Whitaker and Hamer, then we owe it individually, right? That obligation goes with us if we, So I don't think that's really an option, just because unless ESPN was in on it, which I'm a big conspiracy theorist, and somebody's driving these decisions, and it's not the ACC institution.
Yeah, no, it's totally television. But if ESPN is driving the decisions, why would they ever want to break their current deal? It's a very good deal for ESPN.
Yeah, super favorable.
Very good deal for ESPN. They ain't gonna break that thing.
That's the point right there. It's an extremely favorable to ESPN deal, and there will
come a time. There's a tipping point. We can talk about liquidated damages, and we can talk about all these legal things. That there's ways that this thing could be challenged. Is it unfair? Does the damages outweigh what the ACC would actually be out? There's all kind of analysis like that. But in the end, there'll be a tipping point where it makes sense to challenge it in court. It ain't now, right?
And I think that's the thing, man. I think that's the thing. There's a mathematical calculation where it
2030 is
economically feasible. But yeah, it's going to be closeness and proximity to time, because you've got so much time left. And I think, you talk about the ACC dissolving, everybody coming together and deciding that, on those same lines, I think the more people that you have willing to step in and challenge this, the more chance of success that you've got. Because ultimately, it is a well-drafted legal document. I don't think we're looking at a situation where some kind of weird loophole is going to take care of this. It's going to be money, and it's going to be a lot of it. So it's just going to boil down to where's the money right at, and what makes it make sense.
I think the ESPN part is what makes it complicated too, because it is a beneficial deal to them, and it's also beneficial for them for the ACC to exist for their inventory. So it would take a really motivated Big Ten to come in and say, I'm going to pay Clemson, I'm going to pay Carolina all this money for you to leave and come be on Fox, come be on CBS, come be on NBC, which I don't see a really motivated Big Ten doing that. Not without the connection of Jim Delaney. Still speaking of conspiracy theories, Josh. Just for the record, Josh, I know you're a lawyer, but if you could just state for the record, please, the school that you prefer to root for here in the Triangle.
I'm an NC
That's a conspiracy
State
theorist.
Yeah, I'm an NC State guy.
No, it makes so much more sense. It makes so much more sense. Get out of town. I'm shocked by this.
And your Joe is a Duke fan. I have this right.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a Duke guy. Yeah,
for better.
I grew up with my dad like screaming at the TV. He was one of those dads over Duke games, and so that gets in your soul. You don't get away from that too easy.
Are we even going to be watching ESPN in 2036 though? 2036 is so far away.
We'll be watching as we just finished talking about with Dimitri. We'll end up it'll be a FanDuel or DraftKings TV that
we'll be on our Apple AR headsets. Like live
into our brain.
I think the price of that headset will be reduced to $2,800 by that point, not $3,500.
That's when I'm getting one.
If you want the Google's Max, what takes up your whole entire face like an actual helmet, that'll cost you $3,500.
If you like the Google coffin, it'll be
Yeah, I mean that's when we start getting into some Black Mirror episodes. Everybody go check out the San Junipero episode. All right, so here's my curiosity. So we've seen the original document. You guys have seen the original document. This is all speculative. What would you change? What changed that makes it even stronger at this point? If the first one was simple and vague enough, what could you do to make it even more ironclad?
Well, the only thing I could think of was consideration, with the ESPN contract changing, Notre Dame coming in or, what have you. And I don't remember the timeline exactly, but the only thing that I could see that you might want to change, contracts fail for lack of adequate consideration.
Okay.
And this is quite an investment. So I would assume consideration would change, right? They said, hey, we got a new contract. These things changed. Here's new consideration. Because that's really the weakest part. And it's not that weak, but it's the weakest part of the original is consideration is not clearly stated. All
right, let's do explain like I'm five with lawyer speak. When you talk about consideration, we're talking about money.
That's right.
Okay.
We're talking about money. It can be
you're talking about consideration, man. That's one of those things where you get to law school and you can spend like a lot of time talking about what that means. And it can be money, it can be a promise. It's basically the bargain, right? It's the bargain in the deal in essence. And that's a dumbed down explanation, but at its simplest form.
We're dumb, so don't worry.
And we're dumb. And and usually the consideration when it comes to these matters, at least from what I always was told by my wife, who deals with this stuff on a daily basis, money usually solves all the problems when it comes to consideration. And if you have enough money to give to the league and to get out, then they will consider you and your exit at this point. That's and it's just like the PGA and Live. No, we're going to fight you. We're going to fight you. Oh, okay. Money's involved. We will now consider a merger and make it work.
In contract law and business law, money always solves the problem. The biggest problems are when there's not money, right? That's when you have your biggest problems. But when there's money, people tend to figure out a way.
Yeah, when Joe and I eventually divorce, money is not going to be an issue. It's just going to be a fighting over who gets whatever left over of the equipment. And
you want my debt? Yeah, as I'll tell my kids, you want my debt? Cool.
Yeah,
it's all yours.
Like I want in the contract, I do not assume any of Giglio's gambling, anything, earnings or deficits in the grand scheme.
I got a quick legal question for Whitaker and Hamer here. Okay, I'm putting you on the spot, and I'll put up the $2
Hey, careful,
deposit.
Careful! They might charge us the 15 minutes.
I know. I'll make it quick.
Are you billing us for the 15?
Yes.
I'm gonna make it
You're
quick.
On the clock. You're on the clock.
Let's just say you had a podcast for a different group, and you created a theme song with rights-free music in the background. Rights-free. Okay. And included in that rights-free music were public use clips from YouTube and other press conferences that were not owned by anyone, but were from YouTube or any other social media public use. Is that something I can use now on this podcast venture?
Yeah, if no one has any other rights to it, like if you're confident,
It was never paid for.
You don't have to pay for it. If it's truly rights
Yeah,
free.
it's rights free. Yeah,
Truly,
Yeah.
the music itself was rights free. All of the clips that are in there.
And if
were
it just so
public
happens
use
to be
clips.
a really famous quarterback saying Wolfpack ain't for soft people,
They didn't own that. They
don't
don't own that.
It's not. Last time I checked, Philip Rivers did not put any sort of trademark claim
He did
for the
not.
phrase.
No.
So it's just something that he said, and it just happens to be an audio clip of it.
So by again using completely hypothetical here, if that intro is used next week on the Ovies and Giglio podcast live podcast company,
or a
safe?
basketball coach that says my juices flow all the time. I don't know
we
which
safe?
coach that is, but
in theory.
I'll
In
tell you
theory.
what we do over on our podcast on the Outlaw Lawyer. What we do is we use the parody, right, under trademark law. If you're using something for parody or you're using something for news purposes, you're usually pretty clear.
yeah.
So you always got that. You got that.
I found that out. I found that out the hard way on YouTube when we used a Jim Nantz, Jay Moynihan clip. That it was not a copyright strike, but you were not going to monetize that video because it was a news clip, so they couldn't do anything about it, and we're using it for news purposes. But I guess CBS and YouTube have an arrangement, and other outlets have an arrangement with YouTube saying, "Cool, but you ain't making money off that bad boy." And if you do, and you know us, I mean, we've made a lot of money on YouTube monetization so far in the first month.
$7, did you say?
We're up to $60.
7 big ones.
Wow.
We're up to $60.
It's like an almost tenfold increase.
Last
there.
time, look, we need a source of income for that rainy day fund, Joe, and it's all going to come from the $3 or $4 we get per video. On YouTube
yeah.
All right,
now.
so my legal team right now is saying yes, I could use
giving you
my
the thumbs up,
rights
man.
free
All right.
It seems all right.
clipped.
All right, that works. That works. All right, Josh Whitaker, Joe Hamer. Thank you for sponsoring the podcast. Thank you for being officially now our senior legal advisors.
Glad to
on
do
the
it.
show. And the Outlaw Lawyer podcast available wherever you get your podcast
Yes,
from
sir.
the Coach Pete Land Studios, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Give Morgan Patrick a shout out for me.
Will do.